Hey guys, what's up? So today I'm going to be looking at a plugin that I didn't even know existed until I saw it on a Facebook forum. So stay tuned. So the plugin is called Axonic, and it's from this company called GrooveLab. Now, I had never really heard of GrooveLab, although some part of my mind thinks I might have seen something from them in the past, because I'm on a bunch of forums where, they talk about AMP plugins, AMP sims, what have you. And so when I saw this one popped up, there was some interesting familiarities with another popular brand of AMP sims, modelers, whatever you want to call them, that kind of struck me. Now, we'll get into that, but first, let's go ahead and just listen to the plugin itself in a high gain mix, and then we'll come back and we'll kind of go through some of the tones on this thing. Alright, so in a high gain mix, I think the plugin does pretty well. In fact, I think this plugin is basically built for the high gain kind of modern tone. Now, before we listen to that mix, I mentioned that there was some things that reminded me of another popular plugin company, and I guess, looking at this plugin in the UI, you can kind of tell what I'm talking about. When this first popped up and I was reading some of the comments, one of the things that kept being repeated was, well, this just looks like a ripoff of Neural DSP. Well, I don't think so particularly. I mean, I know it has kind of this like futuristic Tron-like aspect to it, but most AMP plugins are set up in this fashion. There's like not a whole lot of variation when it comes to the user interfaces on a lot of these things. And the thing that really kind of makes this one seem more neural-like is kind of the placement of some of the input-output and, just some of the arrangement that they have going on here. But there's a couple things on this plugin that you won't find on a Neural DSP plugin, and there's a lot of stuff that you will. So first up, I have the clean amp pulled up here. And with a lot of these high-gain plugins, I tend to find that the clean amp is sort of the afterthought. It's not quite as dialed in or as, considered, but this one is pretty good. I mean, what more could you want from a clean than just, a really basic kind of easy to work EQ? Now, with that said, one of the things I think is really cool about this is there's a couple distortion pedals built in here, and some of the presets that are loaded in here are more geared towards adding effects to that clean channel to really kind of become more like a pedal platform kind of thing. So I just dialed in kind of a crunchy, kind of washy, reverb-laden delay thing going on here, and I think it sounds pretty good. And so what this, has going for it, it's a pretty standard bass, middle, treble. Really what I have here is this distortion pedal that they've included here with some drive on it, a little bit of EQ there, just enough to give you a little bit of breakup. And really with this plugin, this is really the only way to get a good kind of middle ground crunch tone. Once you go past this point, you really are looking at having just balls to the wall gain the whole time. So we'll move on to that here in a minute. One other thing I wanted to kind of highlight with this clean channel is the time-based effects. Pretty cool delay, reverb. You turn them off, really dry sound. And even for like playing on like a 7-string or something a little bit lower tuned, what you got going on here is a pretty good like, intro track sound. Or if you're like one of those like modern prog thumpy types. I can't do that stuff, but you get the point. So the thing that like really drove me to want to go ahead and take the plunge and grab this plugin was when I pulled it up during the demo, the default tone on here I just really liked. And so here it is. Now, if you can't hear, like, there's like a lot of low end. It really reminds me of the Auto Audio 1111 plugin, and kind of how the tonality is. It's more grindy, a little more mid, kind of spiky, and it's just got a massive low end. Like, and that's just the default tone. There's like nothing. I didn't do anything to that. That's just how it came. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, this is cool. And so that's kind of why I'm running it with my Ibanez 7-string here. I got the DiMarzio Titan in the bridge, really tight pickup. And, I think this thing is massively built to do like low tune stuff, whatever I had this tuned to, like F sharp, B, F sharp. It's like drop B with a low F sharp. So, I did dial in some tonality though. I did want a little bit of variation because as massive as that sounds, I was still kind of like, I need a little more bite. So let me load up one of my presets here. So yeah, and so what this amp really does have is a bunch of stuff that you kind of would find on a real amp. And the coolest thing that I think about this plugin, from a build standpoint, is the fact that you can rearrange the signal chain. There's a bank of stuff up here that allows you to move things around, kind of like you would do in like an amp modeler. So for instance, if I wanted to take this EQ bank here and drag it in front of the amp, I can do that. Now, being that this plugin, it's from a company that I don't know how new or how proficient, some of their products are. With this one, I definitely can tell there's a little bit of rust around, the edges. There's a little bit of lag in some of the movements of some of the things. Some of the UI isn't super smooth. But I will tell you that since I got this plugin, there's been 2 updates, both of which have had massive changes to certain aspects of the plugin, and all for the better, which I think is cool. So that means there's support and there's, actual work being done to these things actively. So just quickly going through the modules, up front we have a gate. The gate's cool. It's pretty much like a Boss NS2 style attack, release, threshold, but I have that up front. The distortion and the overdrive pedals are pretty cool. And so what I got right here is the V drive. It's basically, what I can tell, kind of something you can switch between like a tube screamer, and then there's more of like a tighter kind of overdrive. I don't really know what the purple version is supposed to emulate. Either way, it's an overdrive, but meant to be used as kind of like a boost. So yeah, without it on, it's a bit more like, not muddy, but a little flubby, kind of like a, like something like a Mesa Boogie would be. And with it on, you get a little bit more bite. And I'm sure you could hear as I was clicking it on and off, there's a little bit of popping. This thing does eat up a little bit more CPU than I think I would like. It's not quite as friendly as some other plugins, but for my setup, it works okay. But I will say I have found that I actually like running this distortion, this pyro booster. It's more of a distortion pedal, but turning the drive up, getting the bass, treble, mids kind of dialed in, you'll get kind of like a gnarly chainsaw thing going on. Just like balls to the wall, over the top. It's cool. I'm really digging that. In fact, I think during the mix track, I used that up front on the amp instead of the regular overdrive, just because it sounded so good mixed with the bass tone. The other thing we have going on here is your standard kind of cab IR loader section. You have 2 mics, an SM57 and a Sennheiser M421, and both mics are good. I prefer the SM57 on this one, but the 421 has its own characteristic. And you can move the mics around. It's funny that they have an SM57 and a 421, yet the graphic is this Sennheiser 906 style microphone. But you can move it, onto the cone. Tracks pretty well. You can back it off. It's actually one of the better tracking IR loaders that I've seen, pretty much on par with Neural. There's also an option to run 2 different mics, but it runs them in stereo. And instead of being like a summed mono signal of both mics, what it really does is it kicks one over here and it kicks one over there, and you actually have a stereo spread. And so it's not so noticeable when you have 2 of the same mic going. But as soon as you switch, the stereo field kind of breaks up more, and you get more of that like effect, that like combing effect, almost like it has a stereo kind of delay on it, even though it doesn't. I mean, it's not quite that bad, but it's interesting. If I were to take this single track and go all the way to the left, I'm getting the SM57, and if I go all the way to the right, I'm getting the 421. There's no real blending here except for having two mics on each side blending together. So I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer. I don't know how to really fix that or make it more similar to like the neural stuff where you can kind of sum together two mics into one track and then have them be panable. Not sure. And like I said, I mentioned the EQ section, you know, like all these modules are movable. It's pretty standard 9-band EQ they have going on here. Since this amp is so mid-heavy, I kind of scooped out a little bit of the mid-range here, kind of bumped up a little bit of the high mids. Yeah, high-pass filter, low-pass filter. Cool. All right, so for a couple of other things that this amp has that, you know, kind of cool. Standard tuner. Nothing crazy going on there. One of the things I'm not too fond of is the fact that, you know, you can't just click off anywhere and the tuner will go away. You do have to hit the X button. There's a transpose feature. It's not quite as dialed in or smooth as some other plugins that I've played with. You know, going down an octave. That's absurd. You know, it sounds more like an octaver pedal, not quite as nice as like some of those things that kind of emulate the Digitech kind of drop pedal style of transposing. There's a high quality, low quality. I'm assuming high is oversampling and standard is no oversampling. There's a little bit of a tonal shift when you engage the high quality. And then on the amp itself, we have this, you know, two different tone stack styles. What I really think is doing is kind of shifting the mids, or how the mids interact with the gain stage that they have going on here. At least that's all I could figure out when I was messing around with it. So really with this amp, I really do like the tight, kind of genty, chuggy stuff that I was able to do. I think that default sound was just like really cool sounding. And I really do like dialing in that like over the top chainsaw tone, even for like, you know, a 7-string. It could also be that I've been listening to the new Knocked Loose album and I'm really digging that just over the top, like clip everything on the meters sound. So anyway, I stumbled across this plugin. I thought it was cool. I thought it was worth doing a quick video on. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much, and hopefully you think it sounds pretty cool. So if you have any comments, opinions, thoughts, if you've ever used this, if you've ever used this company, Groove Lab, and you can recommend something else to me, let me know. Either way, I'm here for it. Later.